You are listening to Small Business Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives small business owners the straight talk on productivity, time management, business systems, leading your teams, strategic decision-making, and mindset. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the productivity specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Small Business Straight Talk podcast. Today is episode 309, Self-Discipline, the driving force behind showing up consistently with Dre Baldwin. If you're a business owner who wants to learn effective business strategies, improve time management, and elevate productivity to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. I'm looking forward to bringing our guest, Dre Baldwin, to you today. As CEO and founder of Work on Your Game, Inc., Dre Baldwin has given 4 TEDx talks on discipline, confidence, mental toughness, and personal initiative, and has authored 33 books. He has appeared in national campaigns with Nike, Finish Line, Wendy's, Gatorade, Buick, Wilson Sports, Stash Investments, and Dime Magazine. Dre has published over 8,000 videos to over 142,000 subscribers. His content's being viewed over 100 million times. Dre's daily Work on Your Game podcast has over 2,600 episodes and more than 7 million downloads. In just 5 years, Dre went from the end of his high school team's bench to a 9-year professional basketball career. Dre invented his Work on Your Game framework as a roadmap in reverse to help professionals with mindset, strategy, accountability, and execution. A Philadelphia native, Dre lives in Miami. Before we jump into my really amazing conversation with Dre, I want to make sure that you have taken my Next Level Business Owner quiz. What is more productive than taking a short quiz to help you find out what's most holding you back and getting a personalized playlist to help you solve those pain points? Seriously, go take the quiz and take your leadership and business to the next level. Head on over to amberdelagarza.com/quiz. And now let's meet our guest and get to the straight talk. Welcome to Productivity Straight Talk, Dre. How are you today?
I'm doing excellent, Amber. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this as well. So I know we got to hear a little bit about you in the official bio, but I love to ask my guests, share with us something we don't know about you. And I would also like to hear a little bit about your backstory of how did you transition from playing basketball professionally into personal development and business?
Something you don't know about me. I can tell you that I once entered a hot dog eating contest. Can I tell you how to do it?
Did you win? That's the important part of the story.
I did not win.
Okay.
No, far from winning. I think I came in last. So, excuse me, the way that the contest went, it was 4th of July, and I guess this woman, she was scouting. So I was walking around Coral Gables in Miami, and I guess she sized me up as somebody who could maybe eat a lot because, I guess I looked athletic. So she asked me to be in the contest, and I said, all right, I'll do it. And I tried to do it like the guys on TV. You dip the bread in the water, and then you just scarf down the hot dog. And
there's a strategy. I love it.
Yeah, so that triggered a gag reflex. That wet bread, I hate that. So that didn't go too well. I think I ate one hot dog.
Well,
so
I'm glad you gave it a shot.
Yeah. All right. So I don't think y'all knew. I don't think that was in my bio. So That's something you didn't know. And as far as your question, how did I get into personal development from sports?
Yeah.
Yeah, so how that happened was I was putting a bunch of videos on YouTube back before YouTube was YouTube, back before social media was really a thing. I don't even think we were using the phrase yet, but I had a bunch of basketball players following me because all my content from 2005 to about 2009 was just on the court showing basketball players how to practice basketball. I didn't even talk on the videos. It was just showing them the drills. And the players just started asking questions about who is this random guy on the internet putting out videos and helping people. Obviously, it was helping them, but they didn't know who I was. So they were just trying to figure out who was this person. And I started telling them a little bit about my background. I only played 1 year of high school. I walked on to play D3 college, and then I had to hustle my way into pro basketball. So they just wanted to dig into that. Like, wow, why'd you keep showing up? Why'd you keep practicing when things weren't working? Or how do you get the confidence to perform in a game when you get one shot? You try for your high school team. You try practice all year, but tryouts are one day. So how do you get ready for that one day? Or you practice all season with the team, but then the game, there's 500 people in the crowd, and practice is nobody in the crowd. So how do you perform in that environment? Or they would ask, why'd you keep going despite all the setbacks? You're getting cut from the team over and over again. Why'd you keep trying out? Or you had to walk on and play in college. Why'd you keep the mindset, the idea in your mind you could even become a pro athlete? This is kind of a far-fetched idea, just to be honest. So I just started answering those questions in my material. Or people just ask me how to get started. How do I get started playing ball? How can I get started getting known on the internet? Because now that was becoming a career aspiration. When we were growing up, Amber, we wanted to be firefighters and doctors and lawyers. Now the kids want to be YouTubers.
That's
and
right.
I was a YouTuber at the time. At least that's how many people looked at me. So they wanted to know how they could do it. So I just started talking about those things. And the answers to those questions led to me talking more about discipline and showing up every day to do the work, confidence, putting yourself out there boldly and authentically, mental toughness, how to keep showing up and putting yourself out there, even when success is late to the party, and personal initiative, how to make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. So when I started talking about those things in these videos, I used to do these videos called the weekly motivation. Did it every week, every Monday. And I did that every Monday. First, I just started and asked my audience, would you want to hear this? Because mind you, at this point, all they know me for is doing basketball drills on the court. So I said, would you want to hear this? And they said, yes, we want it. And I did the weekly motivation every Monday for 400 Mondays in a row. That was the foundation for what I do now. So as I started making those videos, of course, the ball players appreciated it, Amber, but what also happened is people who didn't play ball, now they started finding me online. And they would tell me, hey, I don't play ball, but I like those videos you do every Monday. So that told me, hey, here's my segue from the sports world to the rest of the world is through this mindset piece. So that's how I got into it.
Yeah. There's so much I want to pull out of there. I heard you say, how do you keep showing up when success is late to the party? And I think in small business, just like maybe your journey, success isn't guaranteed. You have to have it in your mind. You have to want it. And so what is some advice that you have about, when you get discouraged, when you get let down? It's not if, like along the journey, both in your professional basketball and in business, what do you think motivated you to keep showing up?
That's a great question. And I think some of it is innate. Some of it is just my wiring as a person that I never looked at. Once I decided that basketball was going to be the sport, because I played a little bit of football growing up, a little bit of baseball, finally settled on basketball. I knew there wasn't another sport I was going to do. It's going to be basketball or nothing, or I'm not going to play sports. So once I decided it was going to be basketball, I was not looking at any other alternatives, but I knew I wanted to play sports. So I've always been athletic, and I like the physical exertion that comes with sports. So when I wasn't making the team or I had to walk on in college, all I was looking at was what's the next opportunity. So even in college, I didn't even play my last year in college because we got a new coach, and I didn't see eye to eye with that coach, and he had the power and the authority. So I ended up not on the team. But as soon as I wasn't on the team anymore in college, first thing I was asking myself is, okay, what's the next step? What's the next thing I can do? Which is I got to go pro now. That's the only way I can, posterity's sake, prove that I was right. Right. So I've always just looked at it that way. It's just, I think some of that is innate, but also just having that discipline, because starting playing ball at age 14, I had just worked my way into becoming from a nobody player who couldn't even make the team to being a player who was playing in college, to being a player who felt like I was good enough to play professionally. I just developed my skills just by showing up to the court and just continually working on my game. So I already had some examples from my own experiences that I can elevate my status just by putting in the time and having the discipline. Of course, you got to have the right vehicle, but I think I had the right vehicle, and you don't never know till you get there, right? If you're right or not. But I think I had the right vehicle. And I just continued to put in the time and put in the effort, and it was paying off. I had made it to that point. So why can't I get to the next point? That was just the way I was looking at it.
I love that. And I hear you say that it's innate. And I think that,
Mhm.
motivation and that grit, that willpower can be innate. But I love that you've taken the opportunity to teach other people and inspire other people to show up this way in their lives. I watched a video of yours and you had said that whether your son plays sports or not, that he will be definitely like you're going to train him on personal development from a young age.
Yeah, that's right.
And I love that. I didn't have that when I was a kid. I wasn't until my mid-20s until I learned about personal development. And it was absolutely life-changing, relationship changing. I wouldn't be where I was at in my business. And I can't help to think that, our children, because we're prioritizing personal development, the hope is that they're that far ahead, that's going to be like the gift that we can give them. So in my experience with my son is like, that's all he knows. And I don't know if he appreciates it. Like when I learned it when I was 20, I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? Like I never saw the world this way. I had no idea that you could perceive an experience two different ways, like a victim or not a victim, or all of these things that maybe our kids might take for granted, but I wouldn't change it. I really want him to look at the opportunities that he's in control of his destination. And it's about hard work and it's about managing your mind and not letting your mind manage you.
Yeah, 100%. And it was about the same age range for me, maybe a couple of years earlier when I ran into personal development. I had always been into reading books, but I didn't know there was an actual genre where it was just all about, hey, you can alter your ways of thinking that can alter your outcomes. When I came across the Napoleon Hills and the Kiyosaki's and Brian Tracy and even Tony Robbins was out back then, I didn't know about that stuff either. And I was in my 20s. I was in college when I came across that stuff. But when I realized that there was an actual space where people focused on that, I jumped all in on it because I'd always been into they used to call that section of the bookstore the human psychology. And now they actually have personal development sections, and it's a big section. And once I found out what it was, I was all in on it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's talk about your book, The Third Day. So the title is great. I'm not an athlete, but I know what the third day means from just going to the gym. Like you're sore. You think it's the second day that hurts, and it's the third day that you're, exhausted if you've had a great workout. So how do you continue to show up and push through? And I would love to just have you share some thoughts about your book and what does the third day mean?
Sure. So the third day, it came from the sports world, but it's not limited to sports. I use sports as the example because most people can relate to that. Like anybody who's ever worked out can relate to the third day. And you're absolutely right. That third day is the hardest because the second day is still pretty new, right? But that third day, that's when you realize, okay, this is actually a job. Okay, so the third day is all about, just to give people a quick snapshot. Let's say you decide you want to start working out again. You haven't worked out for a while. Any type of workout, whether it's lifting weights, running, or just exercise, period. First day, you feel great. You got a new thing you decided to do. Exercise is voluntary. Nobody has to do it. So you chose to do it. You feel excited about it. You go to the gym. First workout kicks your butt. You got a new trainer and they push you because they want to show you how out of shape you actually are. And I've been a trainer at the gym, so we did that on purpose. So I would really tire you out in the first workout just to show you how bad you need it, because that would help me sell you on personal training or sell you on a gym membership. Right. So this is on purpose, intentional. So the second day, you're still sore from the first day, but it's still pretty new. And again, you volunteered to do this. Nobody's making you do it. So you're like, hey, this is the second day. Let's go do it. You go get your workout in. Second workout's a little bit harder because the fatigue from day one combined with the fact you're still not in shape. Drag yourself home. You say, hey, I'm doing this. Not with as much enthusiasm, but you're still there. By that third day, you realize that this is not all fun and games. It's not a big party. This is actually a job. There's some real work, some real grit and grind and determination going to be required for me to do this. And then you're asking yourself the question, do I really want to do this? All right, am I really committed to this? Because the third day is that day when sometimes people don't show up. Third day is the day when you grab your phone while you're in bed, text your trainer and say, hey, charge me for the session. I'm not coming. The third day is that day when people start to fall off. Anybody who works in the gym or knows anything about the fitness industry knows that the gyms are really crowded in January and maybe the first couple weeks of February, but by the summertime, it's back to the same people who were there before. Yeah. And a good percentage of the money that fitness centers make are from people who are paying but not actually using the facility. If everybody who was paying was using the facility, they'd be getting shut down by the fire marshal. But the whole thing is, the third day is about what do you do in those moments when you realize that this thing that I signed up for is going to take real work and it's not all going to be easy. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And the third day is the decision. It is not the moment. So the moment is you realizing it, but the third day is really about the choice. And the subtitle of the book is The Decision That Separates the Pros from the Amateurs, because by definition, professional is someone who does something as their main paid occupation. And if we just dig into that, why would anybody pay you to do anything if they don't know what they're going to get from you? They wouldn't pay you. So the only way anybody gets paid, anyone who's ever worked as an employee, you ever had full-time employment, you understand if you're not consistently showing up and doing your job, then you get fired from the job because people don't know what they're going to get from you. They're not going to pay you. Anybody who runs a business, if you have a product or service that you are selling to your clients and customers, and whatever you're offering is not consistent to your clients and customers, they're going to stop paying you. You won't be in business. So the only way you can consistently get paid by people to match the definition of professional is you have to consistently deliver. It's impossible to consistently get paid without consistently delivering. It doesn't work. So that's what the third day is all about. How do you consistently show up and give your best effort even when you least feel like it?
I love that. One of the things I ask my clients is, if you showed up the way you've been showing up as a business owner, would you fire yourself?
That's
right? So I wake up and I just don't feel like doing that thing, or you negotiate the task list, or there's a project that will move the needle. And for whatever reason, you let all the excuses come in the way. And, you have to have that straight talk of like, would you keep an employee around that had that many excuses, that wasn't showing up consistently? And oftentimes that's like an awakening of like, okay, so what are the actions? How do I show up consistently to be the best employee that I would expect from my team? I need to show up that way as a leader. Yeah.
That's right, 100%. And you have to be delivering, again, at the same level that you would want anybody else to deliver for you. I mean, it's a simple concept that goes back to preschoolers. We tell kids that, right? So we got to be doing the same thing ourselves.
Now, in business, I think there's a lot of third days. It's kind of like chutes and ladders, right? Like you're making progress and then you get a setback, or you have a really bad day, or you lose a client or a team member. There's so many things that make it difficult to be in business. And one of the things that you had mentioned was asking yourself, well, why am I here? Am I going to still show up even when it's hard, even when I'm not excited about it? And so what are some strategies that you have that have transitioned over for business to show up when things feel kind of hopeless at sometimes in business because they're so challenging?
Great question, Amber. The number one thing is we're not looking for motivation. So one thing that I make clear to my audience is motivation is for amateurs. Even though I have content that I title motivation, I title that because I know that's what people are looking for. But I make it clear to them that even though I call this motivation, that's not my purpose. My purpose is not to motivate you. Because if I had to motivate you, what are you going to do when I'm not around? What if I don't put a video out tomorrow? What are you going to do? Right? What if I don't send a text message? What are you going to do? What if you can't find a YouTube video to get you hyped up, but you still have to go to work? What are you going to do? So as a professional, you need discipline, not motivation. Motivation is cool if you have it, but when you don't have it, your discipline should still bring you to work and you should still perform at the same level. What I tell people, Amber, is that no one should be able to tell how good you feel or how bad you feel based on looking at your performance. It should be consistent every day. I should know if you lost 3 clients yesterday based on how you show up to work today. I shouldn't know that you closed your last 3 sales yesterday, based on how you're working today. I shouldn't be able to tell. Now, you can tell me, but I shouldn't be able to tell how well or how bad you're doing, because your discipline means you're going to show up as a professional and deliver at the same level over and over again. And the great thing about using sports as the backdrop to this is, if you think about, are you a sports fan, Amber?
I'm not.
Okay.
Vicariously through my husband. He's enough for the whole family.
Okay. What sport, what players?
Football, for sure.
Certain team?
Buffalo Bills.
Buffalo Bills. All right. So who's the player that he likes? Do you know?
I do not know. He'd be so disappointed right now. He tells me
Okay,
all the
so,
time.
all right, so has he been following for a long time?
A
He's
very long time. Yes.
okay. So Buffalo Bills, I know in the '90s they went to the Super Bowl 4 times. They didn't win, but they had very good players. So they had the Thurman Thomas, Jim Kelly, and nowadays Josh Allen. And with these players, I guarantee you there are days, and football's a little bit different because there's so few games. But let's take a sport like basketball, Michael Jordan or LeBron James. They play 82 games a year. All right. Do you think they
Mm.
always feel like playing? No.
No.
I don't think LeBron feels like playing in every game. But if you watch every game, you can't tell which games he didn't feel like playing because his performance is consistent. You know what you're going to get. And that's the reason the fans come to the stadium to see that guy. He understands that. Michael Jordan even expressly said it. He knew when he became Michael Jordan, every game he played, everybody was there to see him. They were there to see the Bulls. Are there games he didn't feel like playing? Were there times he was hurt, times he was tired, times he didn't feel like it? Everybody's asking him for something. Everybody wants something from him. But he still showed up and delivered every single game because he knew that everybody was there to see him and see his team, and he knew he had to deliver at a certain level. That's a responsibility. And that's what that's what being a professional is really about. And I guarantee you, he had a ton of third days. I guarantee you, football players, I mean, they're beating each other up. Like they're hitting each other as hard as possible on purpose. I guarantee you, there are games that there are players. If they had a choice, they wouldn't play in a game. But there's only so many games. Like we got to play in this game, and they want to. And that's the third day. That's what it's all about.
You know, when you were sharing your story of your journey with basketball, it seems like you always had like a bigger vision, right? And so when you're sharing these analogies with basketball of like, if you don't feel like playing, but you show up and you show up consistently, I only know that from business. And for me, the only way I've been able to show up consistently is to not look at what today, like how do I feel today, but like how is today affect tomorrow and like my bigger vision. And oftentimes I have to zoom out. So say you lost 3 clients or a team member left, like these disappointments that absolutely happen, it's zooming out and keeping your eye on the ball of like the long term. Would you agree that helps with the consistency and the discipline is looking into the future of what you're trying to accomplish?
Absolutely, because every day builds on the next, right?
Yeah.
So we also got to keep in mind that the biggest changes that happen in our lives are not these one-off random things that happen. It's our habits, because our habits control 85% of how we think, how we talk, and what we do. So anytime anybody wants to make a real change, and I was actually just writing about this I send out a newsletter every month physically to people in my audience, and it's the habits that really make the big changes in our lives. It's not this one random time, this Big Bang Theory activity that changes everything. Most people are looking for that, but that's not really where change comes from. Change comes from making a decision, changing a habit, and then because habits control 85% of what we do, now the 85% of your everyday is changing. So absolutely, to answer your question here, it's thinking about the big picture and where we want to go long term. That's also part of the discipline. When we know where we want to go, it helps drive and direct our focus in the moment.
Yeah, a lot of my coaching around productivity and time management is a behavior change, habit change, right?
That's
Consistency.
right.
I know you talk a lot about systems, and it is going to be those little changes compounded over time. I often tell my clients, like, we're not going to like go from you sitting on the couch to running a marathon. You got to just start jogging and jogging consistently.
Right.
And the analogy is showing up, having a consistent schedule, utilizing a task list, building the systems of organization, and then maintaining those systems over time. And in the days, it feels like you're running in, I don't know, mud. But when you look back, it's those changes over time that have major impact on how you're showing up in your business and the results you're getting. So I think we see absolutely eye to eye with that. I am curious, what are some of your own favorite habits that you contribute to your own success?
Wow. I got so many. I try to make everything into a habit or a process. So I'm kind of a robot in that way, I guess you could say.
Okay.
But for me is always try to be early. So I'm a early is on time is late is forgotten person. That's always been one of my mindsets. So I like to wake up early. I wake up before 4 a.m. I try to get up really early, get my workouts in, do all the me stuff so I can start working at the time most people are waking up. So I like to start my days early. As far as the things that I do, I try to have a process for everything that I do. So anything that I have going on, I try to figure out how can I do this over and over again. Same things the same way every time. That's a phrase that we use over here. It's something I tell people in my audience, I tell people who work for me, same thing, same way every time. We're following that process and we see the process works. There's no reason why we can't produce the same outcome every time because we have a process. And we just do it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
As far as, and I take that to when I was playing ball, I did that. In business, I do the same thing. And I'm always just trying to, how can I make a process out of this? And even with myself, like sometimes I find myself doing a task and I'm like, wait, I have an assistant. Why am I doing this? Let me pass this over to her.
Yeah.
And the discipline is I had to go and I had to explain it, but I only got to explain it one time. I explained it that one time, show it to her, let her take it over. Any questions about this? You got it? Okay, now this is your task. It's off my hands. And I can pass that over to her. So sometimes it's just the discipline of catching myself. And how can I make a process out of this so I can do it over and over and over again?
I love that. All right. So I am assuming you have a process for writing books. You have 33 books. So like, how did you decide that you wanted to write so many books? And was this something that you felt like you had in you, or you just got started and you're like, dang, like I got this and just kept writing? I'm so curious.
It's both. I appreciate the compliment. So first of all, I've always been a reader and a writer. I had to, as far as the reading part, you got to give credit to my mother. She's an educator. So she had my sister and I reading from a very early age. So I was always into books.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I was doing online, I told you how I kind of built my name initially through basketball players on YouTube, but I had a blog before I was on YouTube. Well, my blog didn't catch on. I didn't become known from my blog. I became known from YouTube. But I was blogging first because I always wanted to write. And when I saw the internet, when I was back in my college days, which was 2000 to 2004, I saw the internet and I saw there were spaces being created where you could just say whatever you want, do whatever you want. I said, I'm going to be doing that. So that's where I started with the blogging. So around that, between about 2009, 2011, that's when a lot of this stuff from the basketball transitioned into where we are now, because self-publishing became ubiquitous around that time, or at least I found out about it. So I wrote my first book, was the only book of mine that's a narrative. It was just me telling my basketball story. Was in 2009, maybe 2010. And I just wrote it just in a Word document and just put it out as a PDF. And I remember when I went to do the audio version of the book, Amber, in 2015, and that book was so poorly written. I had to almost rewrite the whole book because I'm like, I didn't edit it. I just wrote it and put it out. I didn't even reread it myself before I put it out.
I just want to pause right there. Like anyone listening, This is one of those golden nuggets of like, just get started. Like you're not going to know, you're not even going to get the opportunity to do version 2.0 if you don't get 1.0 out there.
That's right. And what's funny is nobody complained about the book, and tens of thousands of people read that book because I put it out for free. Like all you had to do was just go download it. Nobody wrote me and said, Dre, you got some misspellings or some errors. Nobody said that.
Right.
And tens of thousands of people read that book because my fans just wanted to hear my story. They didn't care. So that was the funny thing. That was the first book. Then the rest of them are all informational on some level. And really what I did, my first maybe 4 or 5, it was just writing. I just took the ideas of what I wanted to say. Basically, my process for writing a book is I write out what the headers will be, which become the chapters. And then I just see the chapter. Okay, this chapter is you don't need motivation, you need discipline. And I just say everything I want to say. I just write it down. Then I go to the next one. Say everything. Next one, say everything. Then I just go back, reread it, get it edited, and then we put it out. I don't take a lot of time to write a book. So I talk to people all the time, and I'm sure you do as well, Amber, who say they want to write a book. And I say, okay, what's your book about? Most of the time when I talk to people who say they want to write a book, their first book is about their own situation, some narrative about themselves or their story. That's how long you've been working on this book. 2 years, 6 months, 3 years. I'm like, how does it take you 3 years to write a book that you know all the information for? You don't have to research anything. You don't need to go to the library. What's taking you so long?
Right.
If I'm writing a book that I'm telling a story about my own experience, I can write that book in a day, literally one day. But I see this happen with a lot of people. So they just take too long. People are just too slow and they take too long to get things done. I'm going on a tangent here, but answer the rest of your question.
That's great. And would you say that they're taking too long because of perfectionism, thinking they have to get it right? Like so many things that can get in our way of making progress. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Possibly it's perfectionism. I think in general, people are just slow. They're just slow. And they don't realize that they need to be moving with speed. And once you get it out, then you can make it better. You can make the next and the next. And to answer the rest of your question here, for some of my other books, depending on what type of book it is, I have different processes. So some of my books that I wrote about overseas basketball, for example, I'm basically just giving people information, basically answering FAQs and I will maybe have 16 or 17 questions. I answer the questions, and then I basically format that out and put it into a book. I could basically take a series of YouTube videos and make it into a book, depending on what the topic is. So it's different formats depending on what type of book that I'm making. But the long and short of it is, anybody who's trying to write a book, it should not take you years to write a book. The only excuse for that taking that long is if you are researching and you have to get information and you got to commission documents. Other than that, if it's coming out of your head, you should be writing a book in a week. Seriously,
Okay.
a week.
I love that. Okay. I actually wanted to circle back to discipline. So you said that it takes discipline, but if somebody doesn't innately have discipline, do you have any advice on how you build that? You create it, you cultivate it. I don't even know what the right word is, but how would you describe someone that goes from they don't have a lot of self-leadership, self-discipline to moving into they can consistently count on themselves?
Absolutely. And the simple point is discipline comes from structure. So discipline is not something that you go and enforce upon yourself. And this is where many people mess it up, Amber, is that they say because I talk to people all the time who tell me they want to or need to be more disciplined. And I'm sure you do as well, because you're focused on productivity. So I'm sure people tell you, oh, I'm not as productive as I want to be. Why? Because I'm not disciplined. I'm not consistent. I need more discipline. The challenge for people who need more discipline is that they go and try to force feed themselves discipline. And that never works. You try to force feed yourself discipline. It may work for a short period of time, but you're not going to stick to it because nothing internally has changed. You haven't changed anything fundamentally about yourself, but you just try to force yourself to be disciplined, but you weren't disciplined before. So that's not who you are. So it's not going to work. So what you need to do is go a level above discipline. What produces discipline? What produces discipline is structure. When you have the right structure in place and you follow the structure, discipline automatically comes out of the bottom of the funnel, metaphorically speaking. To give you an example, if you and I went and you ever worked at McDonald's?
I have not.
Okay, so I worked at McDonald's when I was a senior in high school. If you and I went and worked at McDonald's right now, Amber, within 24 hours, we would both be running that place very smoothly as if we were veterans. And why is this? It's not because we are experts at burgers and fries and McFlurries. It's because McDonald's has such a strong structure, or also known as a system. Their system is so tight that anybody who works there, you would have to intentionally mess it up. If you just do what they tell you to do, it's going to work perfectly. And it's not because anybody who works there is a genius, because you don't have to be. That's what makes their system so great. They can plug anyone in there as long as you can follow directions in the native language. The burger's going to taste the same. The fries are going to come out the same. The drinks, the sodas, everything's going to come out exactly the same because the system, the structure is so tight that all you had to do is follow the instructions, and it's basically colored by numbers. And we should all, especially those of us who run a business, we should all aim to have a system that's that tight. So it doesn't matter who works there, everything works.
Absolutely. Okay, so I am a huge proponent of structure. I think that most of the clients I'm working with are looking for structure. And a lot of people have a hard time creating structure. So they're all about following structure. But when you're looking at a blank slate and you're now a business owner and you're in control of your entire schedule, to go create that structure is sometimes a bit challenging. Do you have any advice or any experience with your own schedule and how you've created structure that works for you?
Yes, there's the simplest way to solve any problem that you can't solve on your own. Go find someone else who's already solved it and plug into their solution.
Yes. Okay. I didn't even pay you to say that. I love it.
Yes, that's all you got to do is plug into their solution. So here's the thing that I tell people on a logical level. There are 8 billion people on the planet. Why would you limit yourself to the brains of one person? That's the person in the mirror.
Yeah.
Right? None of us is a genius at everything. We all have our zones of genius. We have our areas of expertise, the things that we're good at. Once you reach the kind of the bottom of that well, you've done everything that you're great at, and you realize that there are still some holes in your process. Who can plug that gap? Who has already figured it out? Who's already an expert at that thing? Go find that person. And here's what you do. You use your money to buy time. Let me explain what this means, because a lot of people have hangups about using their money to plug into these things. Because what I just said, I think most people understand it, but then it's like, well, I got to pay, don't I? Okay, yes, you do have to pay. Let me tell you why you want to pay. We have 5 forms of investment in life: time, money, attention, energy, and focus. Anything you want to be good at, you have to put in all 5. Absolutely. And this is a non-negotiable.
Say those one more time slower so we'll all get it. Yep.
Time, money, attention, energy, and focus. These are your 5 forms of investment. You must put these into anything you are successful at, anything you're good at, anything that is fruitful for you in life. You have already put all 5 in. Anything that you wish to be fruitful at, you must put these 5 in, guaranteed. So when it comes to plugging into someone else's process or someone else's structure for something that you want to be good at, yes, it costs money. And some people have a hang up about parting with their money. Okay, let's talk about that because this is important, especially in business. Time is the most valuable of those 5 resources. Out of 100% of a pie, time is 60%. Money, attention, energy, and focus are each worth 10. And let me tell you why this is. You can run out of money and make it back. All right. Amber, you ever been in a position where you ran out of money?
Absolutely.
Okay. Did you make it back?
Yep.
Okay. So you ever been down on attention? Like you were just dull and fog brained and you're like, I need to take a nap or I need some coffee. You ever been in that situation?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. And you got the attention back?
Yep.
Okay. Have you ever been low on energy? Like I'm just dead tired. I just can't do anymore. I got to go do something else. You ever been in that situation? All right,
yes.
Did you get the energy back? You go to sleep, you get energy back. Okay. Have you ever lacked focus? Like I'm trying to do this, but I just can't focus, but you got focus back before, right?
Yep.
Okay. So money, attention, energy, and focus, you can go down to 0. You can make them back. Okay. Everybody knows this. Think about your own life. We've all been at 0 on these at some point, and we can make them back in a very short period of time. Run out of time, we call that death. You can't come back from that. So this is the only non-replaceable investment. This is the only resource you cannot replace is your time. This is why time is worth more than money, attention, energy, and focus put together. So anytime you have a problem that you are not solving, you can't solve, you're trying, it's not being solved. What you want to do is not keep banging your head against a stone wall trying to solve it yourself, because that costs you time and you're not getting to the outcome. You want to get to your outcomes as quickly as possible. And the way you get to your outcome quicker is to use your money to buy time. So let's just say I'm trying to be more productive. I can't figure it out. Amber has a process and a structure for how to be more productive. I should take my money and pay her to get that structure because it will allow me to be more productive. I can produce more, get to my outcomes much faster. So let's say if I do it on my own, I eventually figure it out. It takes me 5 years. But if I was to hire Amber and work with her, it might take me, how long would it take me to go through your program and learn what you know?
6 months to a year.
6 months. Okay. So let's say it took me 6 months. So the 6 months that I get the outcome through Amber, as opposed to 5 years doing it on my own, I just bought myself 4.5 years of time. Here's my question to the audience. How much money would you spend for 4.5 years of time? You're about to die and the doctor came in and said, okay, you're going to die in 5 minutes, but for $15,000, you can live for another 4.5 years. Who could find the money? I think everybody would, right? This is the way you have to look at how you're using your money to buy time. So when you spend money to access someone else's brain, what you're doing is you're paying to achieve the outcome faster with them than you would achieve it on your own if you would ever achieve it on your own. And that's assuming that you figure it out. And most of the time, people don't figure it out. As I talk to a lot of people, and I see this over and over again. They want to hold on to their money. People are very stingy with their money, but very generous with their time. When you should be the opposite. You should use your money freely to buy time and be as stingy as possible with time, because you run out of time, it's over. You run out of money, you can come back. So that's the way I look at that.
Very well said. So if how you value your time, which I agree with 100%, how has that influenced some of the decisions you've made in your own business and how you run your business?
Great question.
I heard you talking about an assistant. So I'd love to hear what your lens and decision making is that you value your time so much.
Great question. When I first started out, I didn't know what I just explained to you. I could not have explained that to you 10 years ago. Or even when I stopped playing ball, which was about 2015 when I transitioned to full time, I couldn't have explained that. But I understand it very well now, because usually the older we get, the more we value our time, right?
Yeah.
And especially when you have children, you're looking at your kids and like, okay, I want to set him or her up for their future. And what if something happens to me tomorrow? All right, what are they going to, have I put them in the right position, right? Has what I've done positioned them? So you just start thinking about these things a little bit more. And also when you're talking to your peers, all right, people who may be doing better than you, wait, what are they doing that I'm not doing, right? So you're looking at these things. Also, when you're an entrepreneur and you're running your own thing, how often, Amber, I want to ask you this, I know it's your show, let me ask you this. Have you ever gotten to the end of the day and you're like, man, I got so much to do and I did so much today, but I still didn't get everything done?
Yeah,
right?
every day. You never
Right,
get it
every
all
day,
done. You'd
right?
be out of business.
Exactly. As an
Yeah,
entrepreneur, you're never done your work,
yeah.
right? And I'm looking at myself, and I'm sure you look at yourself, and entrepreneurs listening to this. We're never going to get everything done. So we have to leverage other people, and we have to leverage our time as best as possible. So for me, the thing is realizing that I need to use the money to buy time, because there's no way that I can use my time to buy money. I don't have enough. That is impossible. I can't work that hard. And I'm the work on your game guy. All right. There's only so much work that I can do to buy money with my time, because you're going to eventually run out. There's only so far there's a ceiling on how far anybody can get using their own time and effort to buy money. But there is no limit when you're using your money to buy time, because you can use as much money as you can come up with, but you can achieve those outcomes. And again, with the processes and the systems and all these things that we've been talking about in this conversation, you can get a lot of things done by simply leveraging your resources, so that other entities and other things and other people are doing stuff so that you don't have to. The challenge that a lot of entrepreneurs have, especially in Western society, because we're all taught this hard work, right? Hard work is the key to success. And if you're not getting the success you want, obviously you're not working hard enough. That must be the problem. That's an inaccurate formula that puts a lot of people in the wrong position, and it causes them to think anytime things are not working, well, let me just double down on effort. That's not what you need to do. What you need to double down on is insight. There is between effort and insight. Insight is a different perspective. And often an insight comes in the form of a question that you cannot answer. That's an insight, a question that you cannot answer. And when you can't answer the question, what it does is it breaks your brain. It causes you to think in a different way and say, oh, maybe if I went this direction instead of going the direction I've been going, now I can get the outcome. And this is how you start to achieve 10x results with 1x effort. But a lot of people think the exact same way their entire lives. They never open their minds to different ways of thinking, so they never solve the problem. So I don't know if I even answered your question there, Amber. I'm talking.
Well, there was a lot of gold in there. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I want to unpack that. I loved your definition of an insight. I mean, I am a coach, and I think that the value that I bring to my clients is asking questions to have them see something different, invite them to another perspective.
That's right.
Challenge them to solve something differently in their business. And oftentimes we can see the same thing over and over until someone invites us to see it differently. So the insight. But I also think, while that is something I do, I think it's a skill set we can do for ourselves. One of the things that I lean on when I feel in my own business, if I feel frustrated, it's like, hold on, am I asking the right question? The question is the key to unlocking that gridlock, to seeing something different, to potentially even discovering what it is you need. Like one of your resources you were talking about. Is it someone that can help me? Is it a resource that's missing in the business that I'm just so close to that I can't see? I think a good question draws you out of the problem and lets you see it differently.
Right. And I'm always, to further answer the question that you had asked me and to go with what you just said, is anytime I'm not getting the outcome that I want in a certain space, I used to default to, okay, what work do I have to do to solve this? Now my thinking is, who's already solved it and how much would I have to pay them for me to plug my stuff into what they're doing.
Yeah.
So the only challenge that I have these days is, all right, do I have the money to pay this person? Can I pay this person to solve this problem? And that's the only problem that I'm trying to solve, not how much work do I have to do. I've divorced myself from that way of thinking.
Yes. And so have I. And I think that what I see most often is that belief drives decision making, which will be someone that is, coming to me saying, my health is suffering, my relationships are suffering, I'm always working in my business, I'm a workaholic, I have no boundaries. And it's all because it's kind of like good intention. Like they're like, I'm going to be successful in business, but it's through a lens that's not serving them, so that they're making these decisions where it feels like everything else is the price they have to pay for that. And I don't agree with that at all. Like that's literally, almost 6 years of podcasting, what I've said is like productivity is not about doing more work. It's about how we can show up and have the biggest impact. And I
Right.
think you're saying the same thing, is that you're really clear about how you can have the biggest impact in your business. You're leveraging through other people so that you can still reach your goals. There's a lot of alignment. So I agree 100%. And you said it differently than I did. And that's why I had you on today. So I love that.
Yeah, man, it's literally people working themselves to death. Things
Yeah.
what you said. Yes.
And it's not good for anybody. It's not. And I think that you touched on it a little bit, but it's been the narrative that so many people on YouTube, wherever you're listening, it's the hustle culture, it's work harder.
Right.
And it really doesn't need to be. For myself, my own vision of success is to have a very successful business, but also a lot of free time with my family, for my own personal hobbies. Like it's a bigger picture of what I deem as success than just what the business can do or not do.
That's right. And one thing that I tell people, Amber, is that you got to know what your money skills are, or your $1 million skills. And I have only 3. After basketball, I don't play ball anymore, but besides basketball, it's writing. I'm either speaking to an audience or I'm speaking to one person, which is usually in the form of coaching or a sales call. Speaking to an audience would be like what we're doing right now, or I'm making a YouTube video, and then I'm writing. If I'm not doing one of those 3 things, I'm not being as efficient as I could be, because those are the 3 things that I'm really, really good at, like pro level, top 1%. If I'm not doing one of those 3 things, like I don't want to build another funnel. I should not be building funnels. I don't want to be for my newsletter, I don't need to be getting the transcripts and putting them into the Google Doc. Like my assistant can handle all that. I don't want to be, uploading reels to Instagram. I don't need to be doing any of that stuff. Those things are taken away from my strength. So people need to know what their money skills are, which is usually not more than probably 3 things. Some people is 2, some people is only 1 thing. And you should be structuring your life and your business such that you're doing as much of that thing as possible.
Absolutely. I call those your high value activities. And
Exactly.
The thing that only you can do, you can't outsource.
Mm-hmm.
And for you, it's your expertise, it's your skill set, it's your personality, it's how you're reaching your audience and serving. And, outside of that, everything is kind of like back of the house. You can get support with all of that.
Yeah, and AI can do that stuff.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Yes, it is.
Before we wrap up, I had another burning question. So, I hear, and I'm sure you do, there's a lot of people that are timid or just afraid of the idea of structure. And so I've got to ask, where do you find flexibility in your business or life that balances, it sounds like, a lot of structure that you have, or is it all structure?
That's a great question. And the thing is, I believe it was Jocko has a book called Discipline is Freedom. And the whole thing is, when you have structure and you have discipline and you're highly organized, you get your freedom to freestyle within the confines of the structure. So you think of someone like, I'll go back to a sports reference, think of someone like Michael Jordan. If you look at highlights of Michael Jordan, it looks like he's just out there just doing his thing, right? But Chicago Bulls had a very structured system. They call it the triangle offense. But within the system, Michael Jordan was able to still use his personal talents. And Kobe Bryant later played for the same coach. I mean, look at Kobe Bryant highlights with people a little bit younger. Same thing. He was able to freestyle within the confines of the system. Look at LeBron James. His teams have systems, but he's able to freestyle within the system. And it's the same thing that all of us do. We all have systems and processes for how we do things. Within the process, we are able to do our kind of free-flowing thing, if that's what you want to call it. But that structure and that organization is what we can always come back to. It's kind of like the home base that we can always come back to. So you may go off the path a little bit, but you always know you can come back to your North Star and keep following the process that you have here, because that process produces an outcome. And let's remember what business that we're in. What I tell people over in Work on Your Game world is that we're in a performance and a results-based business, and that comes from the sports world. All right, at the end of everything, we're looking up at that scoreboard. All right, that's what matters. Right. So it's not our feelings, not our opinions, it's that scoreboard. And we didn't know what our scoreboards are, but we follow the process because that's how we went on the scoreboard. And whatever you want to do in the process of following that process, do it as long as the scoreboard looks right. If it doesn't, then we got to make some changes.
All right, that's great. All right, I watched one of your videos and you closed it out with a call to action for people to take action. And I
Yeah.
also close out every single one of my episodes with that as well. So based on today's conversation, I would love to hear, like, what is some action that you would expect somebody to get from the insights we talked about today? What can someone do based on what we chatted about today?
Great question. I'll give you three things. Number one, everyone should sit down and decide what are your $1 million skills, even if they haven't produced $1 million yet. But if you had to focus on them, they could, if you just focused on them. And it should be no more than three things. Most people are not that talented at more than three things. So what are your three at the most? It could be one. It could be two. It can be three. What are your $3 million skills? That if you had to spend all day just doing those three things, what would they be? Write those down. You need to know what they are. And then number two, you need to put a structure in place that will produce the discipline that allows you to do more of those $1 million skills and less of everything else. If that means you need to consider, even if you're not in a position to do so yet, hiring someone who can do things for you, signing up for some AI software that can do things for you, and just moving things off of your plate. Maybe there are things you're doing right now by habit that if you just stopped doing them, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't even make any difference. A lot of times we do that. We get caught up in the process of doing the same things over and over again for no reason, just for tradition, and they're not even doing anything for us. So again, just thinking about how can I structure my business, my life, that I can do more of these money skills, whatever they happen to be. And the third thing is who or what can do things for you that you don't need to be doing yourself. Where can you substitute your hard work, but take that out of the equation and substitute in somebody else's brain, somebody else's knowledge, somebody else's insight, even if that means up to and including financially investing in getting that solution. Because again, we're in the business of buying time here, folks, because you cannot keep trading your time for all the things that you want in life because you will eventually run out of it. We're all on the clock, as I like to tell my audience. So how can you use your other resources to buy time? Think about that. How would you do it? How could you do it? Even if you don't feel like you can financially do it yet, you need to know what they are. Like, when I get this, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to invest in these things to help move myself forward. It gives your subconscious mind a focus. And when you give your subconscious mind a picture of what you want to do, it finds miraculous ways sometimes of getting you towards it. But you got to get focused on it first.
Thank you so much for sharing those very clear actionables. As we close out, what can you share how our listeners can learn more about you, your writings, your YouTube? I know that you have a text number where people can get motivational videos from you or messages from you. I'd love to have you share that.
Yeah, that's a lot of things. So, all right. So first thing, I'm on all the social medias. So you can find me on any social platform, probably most active on Instagram. My Instagram is just my name, @Dre Baldwin. I use the stories function there a lot. The text number, I do send out a daily motivation text every day. I also send out a Monday motivation text every week. It's a little bit longer message. You can just text me at my number, 305-384-6894. And it's free to join my text community. We'll tell you your options for how much you want to hear from me once you get into my text community. And the book, The Third Day. That's actually right here. We talked a lot about that. I will send anyone a free copy of this book, paperback version. All we ask is that you cover the shipping, and to USA, it's just $9.95. Go to ThirdDayBook.com, ThirdDayBook.com. The book is completely for free. All you're going to do is cover the shipping. We will ship this to you wherever you live, physical copy to your doorstep. And then if you do any of those things, you'll be in our world, and we'll email you and all that. You'll know everything else we got going on.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for being here today. This was a great conversation.
Of course. I appreciate you sharing your platform. Thank you.
Absolutely. Wasn't that such a great interview with Dre? I know that I got feedback from my own team that got to listen to the interview, and the feedback was that they truly enjoyed it. I have loved having you listen to this episode of Small Business Straight Talk. And I sure hope you found my conversation with Dre to be incredibly valuable, insightful, encouraging. But I need to be straight with you. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So based on my conversation with Dre, what is one thing that you can take action on that will make a change in your business and life? Decide now. Later is not an option. There's no way that you are going to finish this podcast, go to the next one, get to the destination you're driving to, stop working out, whatever it you're doing, and do it later. give yourself a moment to pause after today's podcast and really take in what you took away from with this conversation and identify one thing that can help you with your own mindset, strategy, consistency, how you choose to show up in your business and life. And if you have not already done so, be sure to go take my Next Level Business Owner quiz. You can grab that by heading on over to amberdelagarza.com/quiz, or the link will be in the show notes wherever you're listening to this episode of the podcast. And if you are new here, welcome. Be sure to hit subscribe so you do not miss another episode. And if you've been here for a while, I would love to hear from you. Please feel free to leave a review and give me feedback on what it is that you take away from Small Business Straight Talk. So that's my Straight Talk for today. Until next time, have a productive week.